You're listening to the official Efficiency Experts podcast, and we just want to achieve.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my humble abode for the 10th episode of the Efficiency Experts Roundtable podcast. My name is Gunnar, you may know me as Dragon Seance, and today we will be covering the Menaphos expansion. First, let's meet our panelists.
Hi, I'm Alex, aka Evo.
Hey, I'm Andrew, also known as Determined.
G'day, I'm Shane, also known as Darkscape. I'm the Eternal Rank 1 Darkscape player. Big shout out to all the fans.
And I'm Chris, also known as I'm Rubik.
All right, Shane, do you want to take us on a quick virtual tour throughout the city?
Absolutely. First, we'll be looking at the Imperial District, which is the largest and most extravagant district, which features the Arcadia logs. You boys been doing them?
A bit.
Yeah, which is actually some of the best woodcutting experience at the moment, which is just over 300k with bonuses. And it's filled with a rich tapestry of art and sort of like a stunning flora. The trees are really nice there. And the Grand Library, which is beyond any lorehound's wildest imagination. And I think a lot of people have been saying it's a bit sort of kept off with fences, but I think that's just sort of keep the plebs out, isn't it? Because it is the Imperial District. Isn't that right, Andrew?
I think it's annoying. Can't walk from there to any other district.
Yeah, of course you would. The Ports District, which is like the second largest one, and it's essentially like the transportation hub of the city, and it's filled with a variety of sailors, surrounded by stunning crystal clear water. There's also a sort of semi-decent middle-level fishing method there, very AFK, but it's a little barren. There's no sort of like just creatures roaming around. You reckon there'd be a couple seagulls or something like that, wouldn't you?
Well, Port Sarim has seagulls, so...
Yeah. There's also the Worker District, which is the smallest district of Menaphos. It's quite barren, very sandy. There's a little mine, which is decent for very low-level mining. And it's a bit dirty. Very dirty, which you'd expect when it's filled with the sort of... the working class.
Yeah, I'd say it's almost like the Australia of Menaphos.
And then we've also got the Merchant District. Almost nothing there, really. Just a very bad AFK thieving method.
Not AFK.
It's not AFK.
Well,
It's
yeah,
like
not even
traders,
AFK, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's all, really.
So, out of the 4 districts, how many viable skilling methods do you think we got with the release?
3, if you include lower level stuff. Absolutely.
The fishing was really nice. I did quite a bit of it on my ult.
Yeah. I think the thing that sort of, if you compare this at all to, say, Elf City, there's sort of a bit of a lack of unique sort of little single things you can do. Like there's a couple of unique stuff, like obviously shifting tombs and sunken pyramid and all that, but there's no sort of smaller unique stuff like Moor or the the moss pillars or anything like that. You know what I mean?
I think just in terms of the map, I like it a lot more than Prif, because
Really?
I think Prif is much more cookie cutter than Menaphos was. Well, I mean, part of it is because like the entire city is perfectly symmetrical, and I get that that's kind of part of the lore. But Menaphos, to me, apart from the annoying thing with the Imperial District, like I really like its layout.
I think the idea of Prif was that you had all these clans that were ending up working together, and that's why it was kind of had that symmetrical layout. But for Menaphos, it's like they're competing. So you have all 4 districts, and it's almost like they're constantly at odds with each other, and you're working for faction in one as opposed to the others. So I kind of like the layout in that you're more likely to discover something in Menaphos than you ever were in Prif.
I really like the heterogeneity of the city and the class distinctions that Jagex made. I think it makes for a very rich experience.
Oh, it's very distinctive between the 4 regions, isn't it? And I definitely like that.
So what else do we have besides these basic low-level or mid-level skilling methods?
Quests.
And there's plenty of them. Well, there's actually only 4, but the first quest you're introduced with, which has where you have to actually gain access to Menaphos. It's called the Jack of Spades. And in this quest, the Menaphos wants to establish trade deals with Valkyrie. So the king of Valkyrie, the Emir Ali, has sent Hassan and you all the way to Menaphos to help communicate between the two cities. So you and Hassan go on a magical carpet ride all the way across the desert to the gates of Menaphos, where once you're there, you're introduced to a cutscene that goes through around all the districts and shows you off what Menaphos is all about. And I actually think that's a pretty cool cutscene. I don't know about you guys.
I ignored it.
I
think
I
started
thought it was.
to do
I did it on both accounts at once and ignored it.
I liked it. It was very interesting. I liked the exposure we got.
Yeah. Well, from there, you end up talking to the faction leaders, and as you're talking to each one of them, the Jack of Spades, this treachery person who's trying to cause havoc in the city, appears and steals their prized possessions, and they demand you go catch him. So, if you haven't known the quest, well, it's Ozen. Jack of Spades is just Ozen. No one really special.
Yeah. This should go without saying, but spoiler alert: there's gonna be a complete rundown of the four quests. So better late than never, I guess.
Exactly. And he returns the items to you and says, yeah, all these faction leaders are pretty corrupt, but you can gain reputation with them and gain respect so that you can actually progress and do stuff within the city. So he returns it to you, and quest complete. You get the Grand Exchange and a bunch of other XP and a few other things, like access to the shifting tombs and etc. Then from there, as you gain reputation in the city, you can do another quest called Crocodile Tears. And in this quest, you talk to Sinilton, who is a person in the desert in a tomb from another quest, who you interact with as she knows a bunch of history within the city, as she used to be a pharaoh of Menaphos in her past. Well, she tells you a story about a crocodile, and how a crocodile chased her boat all the way down the city, down a river, and how the boat essentially sunk and ate a fat man. And she explained how the crocodile eating the fat man taught her an important lesson that crocodiles are lazy, and they wait and conserve their energy to get the most profit. Well, somehow that story leads to you talking about crocodiles are eating other people across the desert, and she tells you, we'll go to Krondis, the goddess of crocodiles, essentially, to solve this issue. And from there, you locate Krondis. Krondis has you go on like this weird hunt, getting items across the desert, and then you find out Krondis is corrupted from a mascot, and you kill a crocodile, essentially, and quest complete.
She's got some big titties, that crocodile.
Oh god.
You seen her?
I mean, if crocodiles are lazy people who wait and then maximize their profit, I'm pretty sure Gunner is a crocodile.
My breasts are not as torpedoed.
Oh god.
The best thing about this quest is that the reward is immunity from desert heat. Which,
Yeah.
Can't handle the heat. Stay out of the kitchen.
I like the immunity, but I don't find it, because everything within the desert has been kind of moved within cities now, like the divination spot. So I don't see it as much of a problem.
Well, now they can put good methods in the desert, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Unless you want to do those what are they called? The chinchompas, or the skill chompas.
Right.
That's actually something useful. Yeah,
Excalibur does out-heal the damage from the heat anyway, so.
Did you like that quest?
I enjoyed it. I like the area where Krondis is located, that little, like, all the water coming down from the ceiling, and then, like...
It reminded me much more of the older sort of quests, which was good. You're sort of roaming about, just exploring, which I liked.
Alright, well, let's quickly cover the other two.
Alrighty. So the next one is called Our Man in the North. And essentially, you want to give a progress report about the heritage and bloodline of the royal lineage in Menaphos. Well, to do that, you need to find some guy outside of Menaphos who's essentially not allowed in because he studies this, and that topic is forbidden due to sketchy reasons. Because supposedly the pharaoh isn't the true rightful heritage or bloodline. So you go get this guy, you bring him back to the city, and he finds a book, and he's like, I could read this book, but I don't know much about it. So if someone lived back in that period of time, maybe they know. And he's like, they don't exist. But obviously they do, because Singleton, who's the previous pharaoh of Menaphos, who's stuck in a kind of memorial type tomb, knows all about this. So you go to her, talk to her, and she's like, yeah, Osman is the true rightful king of Menaphos. And he gets excited and goes to tell the king of Al-Qarid, and he's like, I'm the true king. And then Jabrari, who's the ambassador of Menaphos, who's also like this mastermind pulling the strings, is like, yeah, you can't tell him that. And threatens them, basically. So it's your job to go out and find him throughout the city and kill all of his clones. Once you do, you fight him in the duel arena, and when you defeat him, he tries to kill you once more, but then the god Het comes out and saves your life. Even though he doesn't really need to save your life. I never got that. And then from there, Osman is then banished from the city because he kind of had all these secret trade deals with Jabrari behind the King of Al-Qarid's back. And so that's where the quest ends. I don't know how many of you have done this, but what did you guys think of it?
I only did the first one.
I didn't like that you were saved. I think it sort of... back in the old day, your character used to always find your way out of situations yourself. But it just sort of seemed like a little bit of a cheat. And I'm a bit biased. I don't like the god quest lines. But it would have been nicer if you had done it.
That is true. It did seem out of place, though, because you just defeated him in a fight, and he comes out of nowhere after the fight's already over to save you.
Nothing wrong with a little Deus Ex Machina.
Oh.
Anyway, now for the final quest, and the best one of them all, Fight Club. So, in this one, Osman snuck into Menaphos, because he's like, I want to become the rightful king. So he's like, let's start a revolution and overthrow the pharaoh. And so then you go off and talk to all the faction leaders to try to get them agreed to do a revolution. But they're like, yeah, we like it how it is, but we hate the pharaoh. So how about you do this for us, and then maybe we'll consider. So you essentially go between each of the factions like in one small favor type of thing, interacting and kind of making a connection between them all to agree to help start a revolution to overthrow the pharaoh. Once you do, and they all agree, you go over to the pharaoh and tell him that he's delusional and his time is over. So you fight him, you defeat him, and during the fight, you uncover that he essentially got corrupted by a mouse-kit, which is kind of obvious a bit, but he essentially went crazy. But when you defeated him, he regained his consciousness and he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. And then you get to decide what you do with him. But no matter what you decide, Osman, in the end, kills him anyway. And the quest ends, except for the fact that you get to see a special little cutscene of a mascot siphoning power from a soul altar. And that's all you get to see of that.
What do you think that means?
Bum, bum, bum.
Well, it kind of hinted at that Jabrari put in a fake little book or lineage and made Osman believe he was the rightful king, and kind of hinted at that he wasn't.
Yeah.
But there really isn't much more than that, and that she's gaining power, essentially.
Ooh, that's not good.
Yeah, so there's obviously going to be this big desert, finale quest sometime in the future, which that will be interesting.
Yeah, which the difficulty for these quests, what was the official difficulty quoted for Fight Club?
So the first quest was beginner or something like that, and then the other three were all master.
Right, so I would expect a Grandmaster to conclude the series at some point.
Yeah, master is a bit low.
Yeah.
Also, it should be noted that the reputation for the 3 earn quests varies wildly. So you get Crocodile Tears at 19,800, you get Our Man in the North at 99,000, and you get Fight Club at 254,000. So you have to do quite a bit of skilling to access these quests, or you can do it through methods that we'll discuss later on in the video. But it's not an easy earn to do these quests. Did you guys like the way they made the quest reputation locked?
Yeah, they said on release that they intended for Fight Club, the final quest, to be locked behind about a 40-hour skilling grind, just to make sure that everyone engaged with the city and its content. And it was very controversial. People were very upset, especially people who don't necessarily care about things like that and are only really interested in maintaining their quest cape, or like comp capers, obviously. But people were given 3-month amnesty on all of these requirements. So to me, I was upset initially, but eventually it doesn't seem so bad now.
I think Jagex's plan was that it's a middle-level skilling hub, so a bunch of people are going to gain access pretty early on, and as they train throughout it, they're going to naturally unlock these quests anyway, so it won't seem like a grind to those players. And obviously to us, who are already all max, it feels like a pain because we have to redo stuff that we don't need to do.
Yeah, but we'll talk a bit more about the reputation system later and some other methods and, kind of what it looks like now, which is 2 weeks after release almost, as opposed to on release. But
anyway.
what I'm interested in is that Soul Altar is in the game after, like, how long? 12 years? 10 years?
Yeah, it's a pretty long time.
And that's the big payoff, in my view, of doing all these quests is you get access to the Soul Altar and some new runecrafting methods. So what do we know about those so far?
So the Soul Altar is locked at 90 runecrafting, and obviously the quest. But then there's also the Soul Talisman, which you need in order to gain access to the Soul Altar, even if you have like the Wicked Hood with the Soul Altar thing. And to get the Soul Talisman, you need to kill a Feline Auk, which requires 107 Slayer, or Imperial Mage Ranger Warrior Akon, or Auk, I don't know how to say it, which requires 117 Slayer. So it's like a pretty steep requirement.
But these are also tradable outside the GE, are they not?
They are, to my knowledge. Yeah, they are. I don't know why it's not on the GE either, which I don't get. I think it's a bug, but I'm not sure.
And how do you actually craft soul runes?
Alright, so to do that, you need to deposit pure essence into something, and then when you put in enough pure essence, you can charge the soul altar, essentially. And it requires 4 pure essence per charge. And then once you charge it, you just have to click on the runecrafting altar like normal, and you get your soul runes. And it takes a while to do all of this. So it's not like the fastest way to runecraft and get runes, but it does give quite a decent amount of XP.
Yeah, I haven't tested it personally, but I was hearing something like charging the altar takes just over 2 minutes. And so round trip, you could do about 3-minute trips to the altar. And I've heard a lot of different XP rates, but it seems like you can definitely get over 400k RC XP per hour, possibly up to like 500k plus if you have bonus RC.
I was going to say, I mean, I've heard 300k base, but by and large, this is mostly meant for, the fastest grindable XP. Obviously, unstable is going to be faster, but as for GP, it is nowhere near what you're going to get with Bloods.
Yeah, because you're using 4 essence per rune, and because it takes so long, I think you barely make anything.
Right.
It's a nice little balance between the doing Bloods at the moment and a bit more XP, so a lot less GP. So it's a good choice they've made there, I think.
I think it's going to fit nicely into the runecrafting metagame, which they've been expanding a lot in the first 6 months of this year with the addition of unstable essence, like some options with the runespan shop to buy teletabs. They've given you a lot of flexibility in how you want to train runecrafting besides just camp runespan. And if you do want to get the highest XP rate possible, aren't too concerned with making money, and and you're willing to do some work, but honestly, it doesn't seem like the action's permanent or even that high with this because of the time spent charging the altar. Like, it seems like you spend some time banking, but then you can kind of AFK for a couple minutes while you charge it. So I think it fits in nicely. It's a good high XP method for RC.
What is it like for AFK ability? Is it super intensive? Is it middle of the road?
It's about 2 minutes to charge up the altar, and then about a minute for the trips.
So like
Right. So banking is the high intensity part.
it's more AFK than Abyss, pretty much.
Right.
Like regular Abyss runecrafting. Because of the time spent charging, you get some downtime.
Yeah.
But overall, I think it's actually pretty well balanced.
I think the only issue with it is that they're currently, well, I don't know if it's still in the game right now, but there's a bug with V's power and how much of the soul runes you get compared to what you're supposed to get. But other than that, it seems pretty good.
Right. You get 5% fewer soul runes instead of 5% more, and that hasn't been fixed yet. But overall, like, you're not really doing it for the runes anyway. And it shouldn't cause the price of soul runes to crash either, because not that many come into the game from this.
I'm pretty glad they took the approach they did with the Soul Altar and giving it unique mechanics. Because I was ready for, if it was just going to be a plain, like, you get 11 XP per rune.
Blood
it
altar,
wouldn't
but
even-
better.
Yeah. Well, the Blood Altar would still be better because of Mauritania legs. Because you get XP on those extra runes.
Ah.
Yeah, that's what I was ready to get disappointed, but...
Yeah, it's good that they designed a new system for it. And it seems to work.
Also, from a lore perspective, it does seem to be unique, and that makes it a little bit more interesting that they're not just keeping it in line with traditional altars. Plus, just keeping it in line with traditional altars, as Evu said, it would be dead content on release. And one thing that I think they've actually done pretty well throughout Menaphos is making sure that nothing, barring something we'll speak about shortly, is dead on arrival. Like, there's a lot of things that are not the best for comped players or max players or high level players, period, but they do serve, you know, a niche role for level 60 or level 72. So if the Soul Altar were to come in and be less than Bloods, it would be a huge disappointment, not to mention a waste of development time, which is something I think they're trying to crack down on.
Yeah, they're trying to conserve that for sure.
Yeah.
There's definitely a use case for most of these methods.
Well, I don't want to get too tangential, but I was hyped for the Thieving and Hunter because I just thought they'd be good to have a mid-level expansion to them, and both of those methods are very underwhelming, like the Plover Birds and the Menaphite Workers.
Yeah, that's true. Not all of the skilling methods are strong, but I mean, having mid-level fishing that's viable, and then having a competitive woodcutting method even for high-level players.
And
that's more than I
For
expected.
Ironmen. It does wonders for Ironmen as well.
Basically, out of all these methods, we have Soul Altar, Runecrafting, and Crystallize Acadia. We basically have two new methods that are viable for high-level players.
Right, and the fishing is insane for people at a mid-level because beltfish heal a good amount and they're caught super quick, like stupid quick.
That's really great for Ironmen,
Yeah,
there's like these little
The
use cases
caught
for
per
everybody.
hour is insane. Yeah, so all in all, Menaphos was never billed as the next Prif. They weren't going to say, oh, this is the level 105 Prif. Like, that's not what it was at all. The idea is that this game should have a progression similar to other MMOs, whereby as you explore the world, you have content to do. Not you do everything in all the rest of the world, then you go to Prif and you live there forever. You know what I mean? There's no rhyme or reason as to how content is organized. Look at where living wyverns are, and then regular wyverns, and then the rest of the Ice Peninsula, and then the rest of, you know, Mud Skipper Point, and then the rest of it, like, there's no rhyme or reason why the highest level stuff is where it is.
I don't really mind the Soul Altar being locked behind that rep requirement too, because it actually fits in the game's tradition with the Blood Altar is quest locked, I believe, by the Vampire quests, and the Death Altar actually
Legacy of Seer Gaze, yep.
The Death Altar is Morning's End Part 2 or Part 1.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, Part 2.
So I think that's pretty typical, and it's good that now you have to grind to get a very high level and high XP runecrafting method.
So speaking of high levels, there was a bit of content released for maxed comped trimmed players that will take some time to complete. And it was probably the most hyped part of Menaphos, even though the majority of it lies outside of Menaphos underneath Sophanem. Alex, do you want to discuss the 120 Slayer update?
Yeah, sure. So, you may have been hyped or not, but 120 Slayer came out. For me personally, I already had 120 Slayer, so whoop. But
whoa, Mr. Big Shot.
Not trying to flex too hard.
Right, but, too late.
Okay, so the main new tasks that were added were the Soul Devourers and the Corrupted Creatures. There's various different versions of these, but the common denominator is that basically there's an auto loot chest in the Sophanem dungeon, which you can either use or not. Turning it off gives you a 20% chance of double drops, and apparently, if you have your chest set to turn on loot, you can't get the Hazel Mirrors, but don't quote me on that because someone got their tomato bottle the other day. And also, the monsters all drop the Key to the Crossing and Corrupted Gems, where basically the Key to the Crossing will let you fight this new boss, the Magister, which we don't have a lot of details on yet, but the Corrupted Gem gives you an upgrade to your Slayer helmet. So, how do you guys feel about these new monsters in this new dungeon?
I'm for it.
Another piece of content that I think was surprisingly pretty well balanced on release.
It remains to be seen with the boss as to if the whole dungeon will be well balanced, because if the keys are such that it takes 300 keys to get one of the what we assume to be tier 92 weapons, the keys will maintain an exorbitant price, and that will keep the tasks profitable. If the drops are either A, too common, or B, the monster is too profitable itself, or, not profitable at all, and the drop is 1 in 1,000, you might have a change of opinion based on that. But I agree. I think it's well balanced. But what isn't well balanced is the mask, the Slayer Helm upgrade. What were they thinking with that? A 0.5% increase for 1,000 Slayer points?
Well, to be fair, that's in line with the other Slayer Helm upgrades, though, because I was just doing this on my ult.
But the cost isn't.
The 0.5 is in line. Well, each one costs more points. You pay like 300 and then 400 and 500 or something. So
right, but you don't have to add a 13 million or however many GP gem to it, which will indubitably go down.
Yeah, that'll go down.
I guess you always pay.
I'm more concerned with the fact that I heard, at least on release, I was hearing that the gem didn't work, or that it couldn't be combined if your helm had been enchanted to hold scrolls, and it had scrolls in it. I don't know if all those things have been worked out. I know if you die with your helm in the wildy, you lose the gem too, and everything. That's you're probably not going to be willing to risk it. But I don't think there's a real problem with the gem. I don't think it's a significant or a long-term issue. But no, I was more happy to see the XP rates of the tasks, right? Jagex released in their dev blog, which we'll link in the description, what they thought the XP rates would be. And I only tested like 2 tasks, but I actually did get pretty similar rates. Seems like nearly all the tasks in the dungeon, you're going to want, if you're a high level player, you're going to want to use melee, aggro pot with a scythe, and like a vamp scrim.
Yep.
And the method is very similar to what we had with Erit before they were nerfed, which is basically you stand in one square the entire task. And
I mean, you
just...
can still do it at air root with superior vamp.
Yeah.
It is much more effort, but
No,
you're
but you have to
completely right.
You have to move around at Erit now, or you mostly have to move around.
Because more range. But I was also impressed by the fact that their rates were also pretty close, and it did come out that they had a player who was, I think they said 4.2 billion XP, come and test the rates, and he seemed to be pretty competent, which isn't always the case for the testing of these rates.
Yeah, no,
That
I
was
got
a
very
J-mod.
similar.
That was a J-mod who
It was a J-mod?
Yeah, I think it was
Based on
Actually-
J-mods, have you narrowed it down to who has 4.2 billion
I
XP?
think it's Mod Hunter, but I could be completely wrong.
Okay.
I mean, it's literally you stand there, you like meteor strike and hurricane and quake, and you get like for the corrupted creatures. If you kill the workers, you get about 600k Slayer XP per hour. I didn't test one of the Soul Devourers or the Ox, but I think you kill crocodiles are the best there. Is that still true? Alex, have you tested them?
I think in all my testing, Imperial Guards have been the best, but I've only done Guards and Gorillas because I'm getting the souls, and I'm stuck on Gorillas. I can't get the Gorilla soul.
Yeah. Well, those are a bit higher anyway. So in the
Yeah.
design doc, it says those should be up to like 750k Slayer an hour. And those numbers fit in pretty well with the other like pretty good tasks you have, like the Raptor mobs and, Erit, everything else. Fits into the rotation pretty well. Also, you only really get 2 new tasks because corrupted creatures are all lumped together, kind of like Ganodermic beasts or another type of monster, and then Soul Devourers are all lumped together. So you get to...
That's a good choice.
Yeah, you get to choose which one you want to kill, and it doesn't dilute the task list from Morvran too
Right,
much.
because of a stupid total weighting that would go along with that. I think they saw what happened with polypore creatures, and that worked out pretty well and was very popular for a long time.
Gemstone dragons are lumped together, and their weighting
Yep.
seems to be very low, probably poorly balanced or just mistakenly balanced.
Right, I think they missed a decimal on that one. I think it's like a
But,
1.2 instead of a 12.
Hidden part of this release was, along with 120 Slayer, they I don't know if it was 50% increase or double, but they significantly buffed the XP, Slayer XP from Gemstone Dragons, which are now, we were bashing them a few episodes ago,
They're
now
freaking great.
Are now one of the best tasks in the game.
Well, the issue, and this happens with the corrupted and the devourers, is if you boost, you get half XP. So if you do not have the Slayer level natively or innately to kill the monster, you get half Slayer XP.
Is that a glitch, or is that...
To tell you the truth, I wouldn't be surprised if it's intended.
If that's an intended mechanic, I think it's awful.
Yeah, well, imagine if you had to boost for overloads and they only gave you 500 XP instead. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it
It's
just
never
doesn't
been
make sense.
the case ever.
And they released these.
It's never been the case, but that's how it works.
They release these wilder pies so that you can feasibly kill things above your level without worrying about your level dropping all the time, right? Because you get the boost for 6 minutes like an overload. They shouldn't penalize you for killing tasks above your level, because then you'll never want to go do them.
And Wilder Pies. I don't know. I thought they were gonna be dead content, but
No, they fit.
Guards are 117. Like the amount of XP from 111 to 117 is pretty big.
Yeah, lots of people will be using them regularly, I think, for that.
Well, you'd figure the cost of using the wild pie is the wild pie itself. So that's the cost that it takes you, rather than losing XP on top of it.
as well? Yeah.
Yeah, especially 50%.
I just thought
maybe 90% or something like that, or maybe the level difference would scale. If you were the full level away.
I just think it's totally crazy that now Gemstone Dragons have seen both a doubling of drops and an XP increase to make them viable. But
that's good though, because they are one of the most difficult Slayer creatures. They actually have mechanics.
They have mechanics.
They have
I wouldn't
mechanics.
exactly say they're difficult.
Yeah, well, not difficult, but you have to pay attention.
In any
you have
direction.
to pay attention.
Yeah, no, you have to pay attention. I actually was doing them, and it takes a little bit of practice to get in rhythm, but once you learn it, they're really just a much better version of Celestials now. But you have to pay a lot more attention so that you don't get hit with the spec. Or if you do let yourself get hit with the spec, all you're doing is slowing yourself down for the most part, because you lose Adren on the Hydrix dragons.
I think the best strat is to do it long range if you're going to use magic.
Yeah, so you can see the attack coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think it's... So yeah, I would say prefer them now. I preferred them. And although you still don't get the task that often. But they're pretty good.
I actually wonder, because with Menaphos and like the Sophanem Slayer dungeon, the best way to get those tasks are from the Desert Slayer Master. So I wonder if that's the same with Gym Dragons, and where you talk to the Shiloh Village Slayer Master.
That'd be
I'm not
interesting.
sure.
They ought to do something like that, where you're more likely to get it from those masters.
Right. I mean, we'll go on to talk about the Sunken Pyramid and souls, but if you only need one soul and you need, say, Gemstone Dragons, you might want to go to Duradel/Lapalok and try to force that if that's the last one you need.
True. So, what is the soul update? Can we get a rundown of that, Alex?
Yeah, so there's the new Sunken Pyramid in the Ports District, where basically, I don't know how to say this word, Ushabti. Basically,
Yep.
You're going to go around and kill 146, different Slayer monsters for their soul, to fill in your Ushabti, and then putting it in the chest in your Sunken Pyramid to help you become a Slayer Master, even though getting all 146 doesn't actually do anything, which I think is very interesting.
They're basically just urns.
Yeah.
Well, as you get towards 146, it does give you rewards. It gives you murals in the lobby.
There's lore rewards, but there's also XP increase.
And it gives you XP boosts up to it's capped at 5%.
5% if you've got 100 of the souls. And then at 50 souls you get the teleport to the pyramid, which is nice.
Right. And also the contribution of the Ushabtis, the filled Ushabtis to the well, so to speak, gives a bunch of Slayer XP.
Yeah, it gives...
Like for higher levels, it gives about 20 to 22.5 to 30k. But that's a one-off thing. After that, it's a quarter of that. So it's like 5k.
Right, and that's actually like, if you had completed your entire Slayer Codex, it might be worth it to buy extra Ushabti and bring them to a task just to fill it and turn it in for a little Slayer XP boost.
Right.
At the end of the task.
Like the Soul Guards under Sophanem are like 29k.
Yeah.
For the first contribution, so around 6k per Ushabti.
I don't know.
Isn't awful.
I don't know if that's a great use of your Slayer points, considering you could also use those to like cancel bad tasks or to turn them into GP even if you buy runes.
Right. But as players petition to get a reward for 146, we may see something that
it's
makes
basically
Slayer
a
points
Pokedex.
less valuable.
I mean, it's a Pokedex.
It is a prime opportunity to offer a good reward at 146. Like,
should it be cosmetic or should it be functional, in your opinion?
I think it should be functional, and this may be way out of line. I saw some backlash on Reddit out of this, but basically what you're doing is you're going around collecting souls. One might say reaping them. I think that at 146, the Slayer helmet should work on Reaper tasks.
Oh, that's a good suggestion.
Cool.
Yeah, that'd
I
be
like
good.
that.
That would be so overpowered.
No,
It would be It would be very, very, very good. I'm not lying.
I mean, this is a long rec. This is a long rec, don't get me wrong. I mean, it might be like 50 to 100 hours to fill your entire codex. I know people spent, like, the first person
to 117 Slayer.
The first person to complete it didn't even complete it till like, what, 3, 4, 5 days after Menaphos came out? But regardless, and it's pretty RNG, I think you're talking like a 14% boost to accuracy and damage to
Yeah.
all Reaper tasks. Like,
For what? For
Yeah,
7
for
kills?
one task a day.
No, at Telos with an
Hey,
8
hang on,
kill
hang on,
Reaper or AOD, 8 like you know.
that's what
Yeah,
would make 4K Telos more viable.
Yeah, it would be quite. I'm not saying it wouldn't be great. It would be great, and you can debate if it's overpowered or not. But that's personally the reward. That's even if it's a half. Like, who says it has to be a full 14%? It could be 7%, and it would
That's
still be
fine.
worth
Well, in
Good
PvM
suggestion.
settings, any kind of free accuracy boosts are just going to be overpowered. That's just how it works. Like
it. It's not free. It's at the cost. It's at the cost of defense. At least for anything where you're getting hit, you're going to take more damage. And in the future, when you can augment helmets, you might not be able to augment Slayer helmets. So
Just nerds complaining. It's a
No,
good
those-
update, I reckon.
I don't know.
Even if you make it, because I know some people would be concerned about it, would essentially become a wreck for like Talos pushing or something like that.
Well,
just make it not work on Talos. That's all.
without a Nile at Telos, I get like 87, 88% accuracy. If I just had a Slayer helmet, I'm at 100. I'm just a monster.
I think there should be some reward for
Right.
146.
It
No
doesn't
question. You
necessarily
can't
have
make
to be
people
that.
grind 100 hours or however long it is. Now, you can do it more efficiently if you want to work it into your regular task rotation. You can get all
Right.
the ones that Morvran assigns over the
And
course
then
of...
go pick off.
But that
the
doesn't work if
lords.
you're 200 mil or if you don't care about XP. Although that makes me feel dirty to say.
I mean, you still have to buy 96 Ushabti.
Right.
So you probably should, if you have low Slayer points, gather it that way. But my point with this is I think there should be a functional benefit for 146 out of 146 in your Slayer decks. But even if it were to be just a title, that's fine.
Yeah, if it were a title, people would wear it. I'm sure that less than like 100 people in the game have completed a codex right now.
Right.
I
also-
really
It
like these.
could be a pet. It could be a cosmetic helmet. It doesn't really matter as long as they
Yeah.
give some incentive for people to do it.
Oh, not to mention what it is a trim wreck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a 3-month amnesty on all the comp recs and trim recs from Menaphos, including the quests, the music tracks, everything else. But the Slayer Codex is a trim rec, which is a nice little add of, another major requirement to trim.
Yeah, that's true. Well, while we're at it talking about missed opportunities for rewards, there's a little title that came out with the arc for completing your journal called Salty. There's a highly, highly similar journal from Menaphos. And does anybody know what the reward for completing that journal in its entirety is?
I don't think that there is one at the moment.
That is correct, Andrew.
So
There is no reward.
have you
There's a
completed
reward
it, Gunnar?
Hang on.
Yeah.
I saw someone with a Sandy title. Is that not it?
If
No.
only. If
No.
only it could be the Sandy title.
There is a
But-
person who made a post on Reddit, I think today, of them getting tier 10 in all their reputations, and I don't think they got anything from it.
Right.
That's
but,
another thing.
We
But
have the journal.
It does
and we
seem like
have-
there are a few things missing, right?
Yeah, I agree. There seem to be a few things missing that could have been easily added that would have lessened disappointment for some high level completionist aspects of Menaphos.
I was going to talk about this later, but yeah, the Menaphos Journal, you grab it from the Grand Library, from the Assistant Librarian in the Merchant District. It's almost exactly the same as the Arc Journal. There are 2 types of things you collect, one of which is gems, which are obtained by either skilling in the various districts of the city, so you actually have to camp each of these methods for a little while to get the gem, or like pickpocketing, or there's 3 in the Port District that spawn on the South Dock on different worlds. 2 Arc traders that you trade some Arc resources for a gem, and then 1 gullible tourist that you pickpocket. There's a gem from Pyramid Plunder. There's a gem from the Slayer Dungeon. So you go around, you collect the gems, also, or jewels of the Elid, as they're called. And then there's also the Cats of Menaphos. And the cats are very similar to the birds on the Ark in that they are both time locked and some of them are actually reputation locked as well. But there's one that spawns on each day except I think Monday because cats hate Mondays. And so you have to find all those cats, and then there are a few like static cats. There's one that wanders the desert and one in the VIP skilling area in the Imperial District. So if you collect all the cats, you do get a reward. I believe it's a
The cat hat.
Oh no, yeah, you're right. Thank you. It is a
Is it really a cat hat?
Yeah, it is.
Don't we already have that from Treasure Hunter? Not Treasure Hunter, Treasure Trails.
This one is pretty elaborate.
It's different.
Yeah.
It's a new
like,
cat hat.
Like cat.
It's a new
like
cat
in the hat.
Yeah, the cat is in that. So we have that, and then we also have the override for completing the gems. Sorry, is that an override?
It's not an override. It's actually a follower pet.
Yes,
the
it's
one
a follower
that isn't
pet.
overrideable. It's
A jeweled scarab pet. A jeweled scarab follower pet, which you can't override familiars with, so I don't think I've seen one.
People were furious about that, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yes, people were in fact quite booty bothered about that.
Yeah. Well, I love these sort of updates. I think is this sort of like a nice little passive thing to do over, a little bit of time.
I liked the Arc Journal too. It only takes a week because there's one per day. So with the cats, so it's not so bad.
I can understand why people would be a bit annoyed about time locking, but it doesn't. It's not like a huge amount of time, and it's a nice bit of exploration and sort of a bit of a hunt.
I think there ought to be an analogous title like Sandy for completing the entire journal, but I think we should also note the scope of this journal is way, way less than the Arc Journal or the requirements for Salty, which also include buying out the reward store on the Arc and like getting all the Honto armor and shit. It's like 150 hours for Salty. This is...
Well, it doesn't need its own individual one. I just figured what Gunner meant was for completing everything in Menaphos. Everything in
Stop trying to make Sandy happen, Gunner.
So what, like 146, so and then all tier 10s, and then all the journal as well.
Oh, gotcha.
It should be because it should be akin to or equal to Salty, so have it all, everything in.
But there are some other nice little Easter eggs in the city, including there is a corrupted egg, which spawns in one of 5 locations around Menaphos. So there's one in each of the 4 districts, as well as one near the Sophanem Slayer dungeon. And it spawns pretty rarely. We don't know the exact rate, but it'll spawn in one of the 5 locations on each world. We don't know how frequently, but you can either camp one of the locations, which I tried for a while, disassembling to get it, did not work out. Or the method I saw on Wiki that seems to work pretty well is you just hop worlds and you use the shifting tomb and you make your minimap huge and you can see the red dot. Just hop around using the shifting tomb to all the districts until you find it. And if you find one of those, you can pick it up and inspect it to unlock the corrupted scarab pet, which is actually...
Like an
scorpion.
Ishara? It's a scorpion.
Yes, the scorpion pet. It's actually pretty nice, especially considering all the confused posts on Reddit on the release. Like, oh, I found this egg and I got this pet. I think it's still somewhat rare, like not too many people have it, but it didn't take me too long to find using the second method, the world hopping. Like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I think it looks quite nice. And I wish they did more little things.
I like those type of Easter eggs, and I'm glad that they threw in one like that. And if they did make a Sandy type title or something for completing everything in Menaphos, I think that should be a rec.
Oh, while we're on the topic of completion, how do you guys feel about their whole approach of like, it says it right here on the official forum thread where it's like, so we don't spoil some of the stuff we have not told you about yet. We will publish further requirements as the content relevant to them is discovered by the players. Kind of like how there's a list of these comp and trim recs, and that we know the Pokédex thing is a trim rec, but it's not on this list because they revealed it in a tweet. And the achievement system doesn't say anything because of how the...
Well, I think they ought to be consistent, but let's not even get into the achievement system because that, in its current state, is a disgrace.
Defeats it kind of defeats the purpose of the whole amnesty thing if they're not going to tell you what it is prior to that, time period.
Would you have preferred no amnesty?
Yes. It's if you wear your comp cape currently without completing everything, you're a cheat. It doesn't make any sense. You haven't completed the content, so why do you have a comp cape?
I don't know.
So it makes
why
me
do
sick.
you have
Real
one?
quick.
Well, I don't have it on. I'm not wearing it.
You're wearing your
out of
max cape?
Yeah, just because I got 120 Slayer too, so I deserve to wear that. But if you got the comp cape on, get off right now.
All right, I'm logging out.
Okay, good. Do you think it's okay? You like it? Because I hate it.
I don't care about the
I
amnesty
I
period.
think Jagex wouldn't survive the wave of salt if they hadn't
it's-
included any amnesty.
It's just bloody soccer mums that get furious they lose their comp cape.
I don't really
It's a
get
joke.
I don't get the inconsistency because when new skills are released, don't you immediately get your cape removed and you
Yeah.
like invention?
It's I think it's the first time. Actually, what about when those tech trees came out? Was there 2 weeks there? You know, the tech trees for invention.
I wasn't playing at the time, so I can't tell you.
Anyone? I think that might have been another amnesty time, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was.
I don't think they
Yeah,
should do
sure.
stuff like that. I think they have to.
For some time gated activities, they do put amnesty on it.
Yeah. I feel that as this isn't time gated, you should lose it. It's nice when a new piece of content comes out, seeing people complete it and then earn it back. And I feel that that's lacking.
Yeah, like me and Andrew, we're both comped, and we haven't done all the quests because there's just no reason to rush anything. Like I have 3 months. I'm just gonna get all my rep with soul obelisks because they're better.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the reputation system. So
And the fact that Soul Obelisk came out after people had all done the math and gotten pissed about how long it was going to take to max rep, and then it's like, oh, you can get it at 60k an hour for 20k a day. Like immediately after that backlash had, settled in.
Yeah, so the reputation system in Menaphos is divided into both. There's an overall city reputation, which is what gives you access to all of the quest content, and that is capped at 330,000. And any reputation you gain in any of the 4 factions is counted towards that. And there are some other unlocks as well along the way, like at 142,000 you gain access to the VIP skilling area, which just has kind of all the resources in one spot as well as the bank chest. So that's a nice little spot where you can skill, or you can do your illumination aura there. Since currently Menaphos is giving 5% XP boost everywhere for the first 2 months, so you should be cutting your use there and doing your portables, anything like that. And then in each of the districts, you have another reputation, which is district specific, and that goes up to 300,000 in each district. And along the way, there are cosmetic unlocks, but also at tier 3, I think you unlock a bank chest. And then at like a deposit box at tier 2, and then a bank chest at like tier 6. And at tier 7 or 8, you get an increase, a buff to the skilling method in that district. So actually, if you get the one for the Imperial District for woodcutting, or the fishing one for the Port District, you actually get a nice little boost to the XP rate that makes it, even more competitive with other methods outside Menaphos. So those are definitely worthwhile. However, if you get 300k rep in each faction, that takes 1.2 million rep, takes like 200 hours if you're just fishing, or actually like 250 hours fishing, 200 hours if you're woodcutting, and even shifting tombs, which we'll get to. You couldn't grind out the rep in less than like 100 or so hours, a little over 100 hours, until a week after, or no, maybe only 3 days after Menaphos was released, Jagex gave us this Soul Obelisk activity, where these obelisks spawn in one of the 4 districts periodically. There are many friends chats for them, like Soul Obby FC, if you're looking for the spawns, if you need a call. You hop to the world, you go click on the Soul Obelisk, bring an inventory of food, and you start to take damage. And this is really a teaser for the Magister boss. You take damage, and in the meantime, you gain rep, as well as like 100k runecrafting XP per hour, and like 50k prayer XP per hour. And you just eat off your action bar to stay alive. And then when it despawns, you go, and you can get 20k rep a day from this activity, which basically
takes 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, it takes about a half hour to cap. And if you're only concerned with rep and, you know, getting to these quest requirements, or capping all your rep, which is another term requirement, getting all 1.2 million reputation, then this is the way to do it. And it basically reduces all of this reputation system to a 60-day grind with this daily. What do you guys think about this as a solution, or, you know, kind of the olive branch Jagex extended for the reputation system?
I want to know if it was planned. That's it. I want to
Yeah,
know
it
if
was.
they planned on... Well, I know the event itself was planned, but was the rate planned? And if the rate was planned, why didn't they release it first day? Because they knew there was going to be backlash for how slow the rep was without Obelisks. So if they were going to release it all along, I guess it's lesson learned, but...
I just don't like that it's a daily. And
yeah,
I don't think...
they said they were going to move away from dailies, but whatever.
I don't like throwing another daily at us that, you know... And to be fair, like, this is a very annoying daily to do because you have to world hop several times, and the lag has been pretty terrible on all the worlds, at least for me. I don't know about you guys.
I haven't really lagged. I do encounter weird bugs though, like level 1 accounts and like people with no names and other weird things that happen.
I only had lag inherent to my computer from my old graphics card, but I switched to a new graphics card and I've had absolutely none.
The XP is alright, like, it's not so bad while you're getting some rep, especially since it's runecrafting. But overall, this just isn't the way I would have preferred Jagex, like, give you this this alternative to dealing with the rep system. Instead, I would have liked to see, you know, a viable method to grind it out at a high rate, but that's really demanding. And that's what...
Yeah, we might have even called that high rate for grinding out rep shifting tombs or something like that.
Yeah, that could have been really...
Yeah,
really
I think
great.
shifting tombs does need like a boost in reputation per hour.
What is shifting tombs?
So I should go in and probably talk about that real quick. So shifting tombs is a mini game located within Menaphos. It can be done solo or with up to 5 players, total of 5 players. You can queue with them randomly if they're in the area, or you can bring your friends. And the gameplay focuses on you're dropped in a procedurally generated single level dungeon, and you have to run around completing objectives. These objectives are opening chests, solving sarcophagi puzzles, which are always the same. It will give you a pattern of 3 tiles to click, and then you can open the sarcophagus. And then you have to collect corruption, either from urns or from mining rocks, which you get a power-up from the urns that you can mine a whole line of rocks at once. So if you do all of these, you've completed everything in the dungeon, you can leave via the exit rope. And the reward for this is XP in numerous skills, with the primary skills awarding around 170k XP per hour. An example would be construction. But the real reason to do shifting tombs is for the reputation. And the Obelisk kind of took away from that. Shifting tombs is around 8.5 to 10k reputation per hour, 10k if you're doing it really well. And with the boosts that come from reputation to the feathers of Ma'at gained from the sarcophagi, you get about 2.5 million GP per hour if you sacrifice XP, which if you're maxed XP, you're going to do. And this is basically dead on arrival for, you know, maxed players and even people looking to just play efficiently because they'll get their reputation elsewhere. That being said, it's probably a pretty decent money-making method for mid to high mid levels.
I disagree with that. I mean, doing shifting tombs is one of the most intensive activities in the game right now. It's almost, it might be even more clicks than like doing traditional construction.
I would put it right below construction and charm sprites, but right above dungeoneering because of how the urns work. They don't interrupt your pathing, so you can run and click on the urns while still running to the same square, or if you click on the ground, it will change your pathing. So there is probably a fairly advanced meta for how to run shifting tombs effectively, but we'll never see it developed because there's no reason to do shifting tombs.
The incentives just aren't strong enough. Like 2.5 mil an hour or whatever for, you know, a mid-level player to click that much is not great, not worth it. Any PVM is better.
I've done some efficient things of like runs of shifting tombs and use things like mobility and surge, etc.
Yep, and
to, like,
bladed dive.
Yeah.
Get through it fast enough. The biggest issue with it, though, is the whole like rock spawns. There's so many of them, and it's so ridiculous to try to get through. Like you're supposed to save your urn power to blast through them.
And if you have 5 people, you can stagger your.
It's nowhere near as complex strategy-wise as dungeoneering, but there is like a little bit of interesting mechanics to it.
And it's a team-based minigame, which is basically dead right now.
Yeah, you can also solo it though.
Yeah.
It's also frustrating that you can't really surge as much as you'd like to because the paths are so like crooked.
Right. The procedure generates a lot of crooked paths. It's very hard to surge, but the meta includes mint cakes as well. Like the issue with shifting tombs is that for people going for trim, there's a requirement of 200 shifting tombs to be completed, but the rope spawns very, very frequently right next to the entrance. So I'd say the majority of people are going to go up the rope right next door 200 times, which takes a couple hours.
Not the majority, not everyone is trimmed, but yeah.
But if you're not trimmed, if you're not trim or going for trim, there's not much reason to do shifting tombs.
Menaphos is just a city of annoying trim wrecks, to be honest, because it's 200 shifting tombs, the full Pokedex, and max all rep. Right.
It does have some rather lengthy requirements. My problem with shifting tombs is not the gameplay. I actually quite enjoy it. It's not any of the minor inconveniences like the rocks. What annoys me is that when they stream announced shifting tombs, they stated that for construction in particular, that it would be competitive with the highest surface world rates. I don't know what you have to do to impede yourself to the extent that you get 170k XP an hour making prawn brokers or mahogany tables, but you have to be playing with no hands and paying zero attention to do that. Like,
but you also save a bit of money though.
You save a bit of money, but it's less than 20% of competitive experience outside of shifting tombs. Yeah. That is not competitive.
The incentives really aren't strong enough, and I really wanted this to be, since it's so grindy and it's like so intensive, I think it would have been a perfect opportunity to give players the opportunity to get really high rep per hour doing this, so that they could bypass like the rep system, so that they wouldn't have to grind low level methods. Yeah, like you don't have to make the XP really good. You don't have to make the money really good, but make the rep really good so that people will at least grind out their reputation there.
I don't know. I'd prefer if they made the XP somewhat competitive. A lot of people hate construction, and if they had the option to do construction at even say 450k an hour for free, doing something fun, and I don't know, I think shifting tombs is pretty fun. Well, a lot of people would do it.
Shifting tombs is difficult, annoying, and inconsistent as well. Like, you don't know if you're going to actually be able to complete a floor. So
you can pretty much always complete it. I can
honestly say I did
you can always complete it.
Tombs, and I never failed to complete a floor.
Yeah.
However, you don't know if it's going to take you 5 minutes or 3 minutes. No, I only did 5 minutes.
Solo. I mean solo.
Yeah. Solo, there's definitely going to be floors you cannot complete in the allotted 5 minutes. But Andrew's right. I think the focus here should be on reputation, despite what they promised for XP rates. And the reason for that is obelisks are blatantly overpowered compared to every other method. You can see that by how many people are participating in their daily obelisks compared to how many people are doing any of the other content.
Yeah. Obelisks are killing all the other content, in my opinion, and especially shifting tombs, where the other rewards aren't strong enough to do them.
Right. You think looking at the rest of the mini games, Great Orb Project, Cabbage Face, Punch Bonanza, etc., basically every mini game in RuneScape, they would say, let's make this worth doing, because I'm sure it took some development time, but
something that they promoted heavily, to be honest.
Yeah, it's basically dead on arrival, and I really, really don't like that. The only thing that's really gotten any publicity is that from the gift offerings, you can get 10 onyx. And it's,
you can get those
rare.
gift offerings elsewhere in Menaphos.
Yeah, you can get them from the quest as well, but it does seem that you get them more reliably from shifting tombs in terms of speed. And city quests have a time cap, right? So anyway,
it's once per hour, but the onyx is very rare. Like, it's not gonna. If you're talking about shifting tombs as a money-making method, then I don't think the gift offerings are gonna add much.
I'm just saying that's the only thing that's gained any notoriety. Like, people aren't even talking about shifting tombs.
Yeah, which is weird considering how much they hyped it up in advance of the release, and it seemed like it was gonna be.
It's a new minigame.
It's my biggest disappointment with all of Menaphos. Definitely my biggest disappointment.
I would agree. I would agree, just because the potential is so high. It is.
The gameplay is good. The gameplay is it's solid.
It's fun.
And also,
it's a squandered opportunity.
I also want to add that, to add to the poor balancing, they really made it sound like shifting tombs was going to be how you get all your feathers for Slayer, buying them off other people. But there's a guard that sells 1,000 of them a day.
Yeah, that's not going to be limiting for 90% of people. 95%.
That would be. I mean, if they removed the feather store, then a lot of people would be shifting tombs, and then it'd probably be 5 mil an hour at least.
Yeah, at least, especially because you need reputation bonuses to get any significant amount of feathers. I think the two bonuses together give you at least 50% more feathers. So, Anyway. So it should be noted that shifting tombs it's basically, if you don't have friends who are going to do it, you can go to any world and you're probably not going to find anybody. So you're basically going to be soloing unless you have people in your clan or...
I think something like World 2, maybe you can find people.
Yeah, maybe you can find a couple of people, but basically you're going to be soloing, and it's way different soloing. You are going to get caught behind rocks often. And that makes it quite annoying. So I would expect them to at least see some of those complaints of people soloing and maybe balance it a little bit better towards solo
They did say they plan on fixing the rocks. I don't know when that fix is going to come through, though.
Yeah.
I think they already did it for solo. They said that for solo players in shifting tombs, it shouldn't spawn gigantic crystal forests anymore. But I think... you can still get decent-sized ones.
Okay. So another way to get reputation in Menaphos is to perform city quests, which are varied in nature. But Andrew, we'll let you talk about those.
Yeah, so city quests are one of the last pieces. There's also one other I want to talk about for reputation-giving content in Menaphos, but... city quests are short mini-quests, and they are assigned to you by various city residents throughout the 4 districts. Each one consists of exactly 3 tasks, and each task can be either combat, as in go kill X monsters, or items, as in deliver me X items. I think this is kind of World of Warcraft style questing. And these are actually time-locked. You can only perform 1 per hour. And each hour you can speak to Urluk the Camel in the Merchant District, and he'll tell you which NPC in the city. He has these rumors. He'll tell you who you can talk to get your next city quest. And on release, these were also kind of poorly balanced. They only gave 100 reputation for completion, but a week after the release on June 12th, they buffed the rep to 2,000 in the active faction, as well as you will receive a small, medium, or large Menaphite gift offering. So this is one of the other ways to get the offerings. And if you're interested in reputation, you can turn these in, or they're adding an option to right-click and offer them for rep in your active faction. If not, you can just open them, and actually you get some decent GP from that. They also made a few changes, like for the item tasks, you could have been assigned like 1,000 seeds. So they were going to use this as like an item sync for seeds from the Wishing Well bush. But then, because you can only buy 100 on the GE, because that's the limit, they reduced the quest to 100 instead of 1,000. I thought they should have just raised the limit. But
I completely agree. I read that they were planning to make changes to that, and I'm like, okay, they're gonna up the GE limit for the seeds, and then it's like we've reduced the city quest requirements to meet GE. Why?
I thought we'd finally get a sync, and my 100k barberry seeds would become valuable, and instead we get this. So I guess it doesn't really matter, because apparently the Wishing Well bush is still not fixed. And if that's the case, if you can still get like thousands of them from one bush, then it doesn't really matter. But I was surprised that they went to the trouble of creating an item sync and then made sure that the item sync doesn't work. That makes no sense at all to me. But you can also get 2 different jewels for your Menaphos Journal from these, so you'll have to do at least some of them. I think there's also a task for doing like 10 of them. And that is probably a comp rec or possibly a trim rec. Not quite sure on that. But it's a nice little piece of content. The fact that it's time locked means like you'll go back to it every once in a while. So overall, I think it's a good little addition apart from the item sync issue. I think the reputation is fine. They usually take like 5 to 15 minutes. Any specific thoughts on city quests?
Who are they for?
Well, they're for comp players, really, because it's a requirement. I don't think other players have to do them.
I like
They
the
were meant
nice
to
little
get-
out of the way sort of task.
Yeah, they were meant for people to gain reputation pretty quickly while scaling throughout Menaphos. It's like it's a D&D type thing where you just go off and do it, but it feels not all that great. But it does help if you're trying to grind out reputation, like to pull you away from all the grinding.
Yeah, like if you can get one done in 5 or 10 minutes, that's what, at 2k, let's say 10 minutes average at 2k rep, so you're looking at 12k rep per hour, which is better than even shifting tombs, so it's kind of worth it if you're trying to grind out rep. But honestly, I think if they want to make this long-term, not dead content, what they should do is buff the monetary reward a bit. Because if you could make, like, let's say 300 or 500k or like 600k from doing your city quest once an hour, maybe that's too much, but I think more people would do it just as a nice little money-making D&D, kind of like we have Viswax as a money-making D&D.
And I also think there should be some like small just quality of life improvements, such as like a notification when you get your new city quest or a map icon as to where it's at, so you don't need to, because a lot of people struggle with even knowing that they have a city quest.
That's true. There's a little icon above the NPC's head, but unless you walk past them in the city, or unless you know that you're trying to do one and talk to the camel, which again, without a notification to tell you that you're off cooldown for them, it's kind of tricky. So they could do a little better communicating that the content is there, I guess.
Yeah.
And there's one other little not kind of D&D type reputation gain, which is I don't know if this is permanent either, but this is the agitated scarabs have burrowed to the surface. You get a broadcast, I think only if you're in Menaphos, kind of like Soul Obelisks. And these little scarabs spawn at the 4 different shifting tombs locations in each district. So you can basically pop them like balloons, and you'll take some damage, like 600 damage from this. So you might want to bring some food, and each one gives like, I think it's Slayer XP, gives like 2k Slayer XP and 50 rep. If you go over a certain number, then the rep starts to decline, so it becomes less worthwhile. But I think this is something like you wouldn't necessarily do it unless you were really just running past it and happened to see it. But if you do see it, it's kind of worth it because the XP is actually pretty good for like one click to get 200k Slayer. I mean 2k Slayer.
Yeah.
200k.
Unlike soul obelisks, they don't last a long time, and it's more difficult to try to go find them because not many people are doing them.
Yeah, it's more like incidental.
Yeah, like if you're nearby and you happen to see it, go ahead and do it because it's worth it. But obviously, don't just kill yourself in the process because that'd be bad.
It should be noted that both soul obelisks and these scarabs, these are dangerous deaths, and lots of people have been dying.
Yeah, I was gonna say
especially
some
with the
people
soul
found that
obelisk.
out the hard way.
Yeah. Which I think is hilarious. But yeah, I think these scarabs are kind of like almost like an impling. Like you see it, you catch it, it gives you like good XP. It's kind of like you see it, you squash it. I wonder if they'll go away when the Magister comes out, although soul obelisks were confirmed to be permanent. So probably not, I guess. Oh, also, one of the rewards from the reputation system is you get impling spawns while you're skilling in Menaphos, and even though the higher level ones are pretty rare, it's kind of a nice little boost to skilling in the city. Because sometimes you get like a dragon impling or kingly impling spawns next to you while you're skilling. So that's about it for the kind of lore, Easter egg type stuff in Menaphos. I think we covered a lot of content.
Yeah, I definitely think they aren't done with Menaphos. I think there's going to be rolling releases of minor D&D type things, especially with the boss coming out in less than 48 hours.
Yeah, we will definitely be talking about the Magister in our next episode. But for now, do you guys have any final thoughts on Menaphos? This is the first big expansion, and I actually agree with, I was seeing some articles before Menaphos was released that this was the most important update that Jagex had done in like 4 years or since EOC. What do you guys think of this update in general?
That assessment, I'm not too sure of when you look at things like Invention, but there's a lot of things that were released and then tweaked over time. I think Menaphos is really just all at once, and that's something we voted for. We voted for fewer, larger updates. And the issue with that is the difference in how we hype these updates and how we respond to them. I think we got a lot of negative backlash for Menaphos, especially from higher level people. And that would have been largely quelled if it were released intermittently with higher level updates in between. But when you release something all at once, where a very minimal amount of it is for that high level community, you see what we saw. So in this case, I don't know if it's beneficial, but I quite like the expansion system because it gives you time to work on other goals in between the updates, and it does give them time to build hype and discuss content and make changes to content so it's in line with players' expectations when it's released. But that's my opinion.
My biggest worry about it, though, is that we've known about it for almost a year now, and they've had plenty of time to like develop it, and they started development at the beginning of the year. But each expansion is supposed to take 3 months, and we know Menaphos kind of got rushed, and as a result, a lot of updates. We've had like little updates throughout the past few months. So
yeah, April and May were almost dead.
I'm wondering how that will help like impact future expansions or updates before future expansions. Is it just going to be expansions?
Yeah, I think they can't go halfway with this. If they want to commit, I know that they're just trying to see how this one gets received. But if they are going to do expansion style updates, I think they have to commit to the expansion and say, we aren't going to do intermediate updates for the next 2 or 3 months while we work on the expansion, other than like maybe promos or something, MTX.
Yeah, the problem is they know there's some people who play 4 updates and will not renew their membership. There's people who are month to month about membership, and that may sound hard to believe
Sure.
with us, where we're like, we're gonna have membership next month. I don't think there's any question about that. But not everybody's like that.
I think I had membership till 2020.
Yeah,
Stupid Raph.
But like, not everyone's like that. There are people who are month to month, and those people are not going to renew their membership by and large if they know there's going to be 0 updates in the coming month.
So yeah, that's a concern, and I think I don't prefer the expansion style update, even though the reason we got expansions is because people complained about batch updates like Invention.
Well, it's because we voted.
And voted, right? And I just didn't like April and May. I didn't like when they were like putting out these kind of garbage updates while they worked
filler.
on.
Nobody likes filler.
Just filler. Like, I would just prefer they go one way or the other. But on the other hand, I think some of the negative reaction to Menaphos is bullshit. Like, the immediate reaction on Reddit and from like the high level community was, screw this reputation system. And honestly, like, looking at it, almost 2 weeks in, the reputation system is not that bad. I mean, it's not perfect, but I don't think it's that flawed. I don't like that they made Shifting Tombs dead content, and I'm not a huge fan of the Soul Obelisk, but I think overall, like, you get rewarded for pretty much everything you do in the city. There's a lot of well-balanced content in the city. I was surprised how well-balanced some of the skilling methods were in relation to existing content. You get 4 new quests, which is a lot.
Sure. When's the last time we had 4 quests in a month?
Never. We had.
Never.
I was looking.
Like,
we had 6
RuneScape
quests last year.
chooses-
Recipe
I don't
for
know.
disaster, I guess.
We had
technically.
6 quests all of last year, all of 2016.
Yeah. There are definitely pros and cons that we'll have to think about as we move forward, but I agree that my least favorite part of the experience was the couple months prior to release, where they didn't come out and say, Menaphos is coming out, we're going to be releasing fewer updates because we'll be concentrating on this. So please expect these 2 weeks a month to be no update weeks, and then these 2 weeks to be minor updates. People would have been much less upset over quote unquote filler updates. Like, it was honestly demoralizing to be part of the community at that point, where the expectation for the month was, this is going to be a lackluster month. It wasn't going to be, oh guys, only 2 months till Menaphos, yeah! It was 4 weeks of, it didn't feel like super hype.
Jesus.
And it should have felt.
I was pretty satisfied with a lot of the content in Menaphos, but I think that those marketing campaigns, I know they spent a lot of money marketing Menaphos. I know they were trying to attract some new people and get the existing community hyped. But those marketing campaigns were awful. I think we all got sick of them.
I don't know about that. Osborne going to Syria was pretty cool. Him riding around
Syria?
on a fucking camel.
Oh my God.
You sure about that?
Was it? Well, he was
Is
in
that
Syria,
your final
wasn't he?
answer?
No, he was in Morocco.
Nah, surely
You
not.
sure it wasn't Afghanistan?
He went
Sure
to the pyramids.
it wasn't
He
Australia?
went to the pyramids.
The pyramids in Syria?
I was gonna say, I
Yeah.
think they could build up a soundstage in Australia to look like
Oh,
that.
okay.
But anyway, no, I didn't mind.
That's why
really
the update was the
marketing.
bomb.
I hated it. Those videos, those teasers.
I
don't know what
like
Shane just
real
said, but
life
I'm sure it was
videos.
inappropriate.
It was highly inappropriate. Bordering on infringing on human rights. Anyway, so I didn't really mind those too much. One of the things I really didn't mind was that they had a dedicated website for Menaphos that kind of went into the lore a little bit, which I like having a background before going into the content, which might not be some people's cup of tea, but I thought it was pretty nice compared to the nothing that they normally put out besides a thrown together stream 2 days before the update. So.
Shane, if you had If you had one thing to say to Matt Osborne, what would it be?
Well done with the expansion, mate. Good luck with the next one. I'm wishing you all the best. Best of luck.
Yeah, I would probably say,
Why would I be
people
mean?
are by people are by and large pleased with Menaphos, eager to see what the next expansion is, because we were talking about it earlier. We think it's probably going to be mostly skill
Yeah, well, what can it be?
reworks,
So,
right? So
I thought he was going to
construction,
say,
minesmithing,
where the fuck is my bank
What?
rework?
Oh yeah, well that's the next expansion probably, which would be a bit
Oh, right.
disappointing.
Right.
But if they put like the 5 reworks together, so if you have bank rework, con rework, smith rework,
Wait, you'd be disappointed about a bank rework?
Not
If
I
to
mean,
be
no,
like
if
all the
it was-
only
reworks.
a bank rework.
yeah, if it was only that. But like, I expected the bank rework sort of like 17 months ago. It's been a bit, hasn't it?
You sound a little
17
upset about
months?
this.
Well, yeah, Modash wrote it up in 2 days over the weekend. He's like, let's see what I can do on my computer. And he gets it bloody typed up straight away. And they've been on RuneScape 3, they have about 30 times the mods, and they're still doing it for the last... How long has it been in development for?
But
Genuinely,
we're
how
getting like 100 more features than they are.
long? Who cares? I just want the placeholders. It's short, but we get 100 more features. They got 100 more mods working on this game. So just pump it out.
All
It's
right,
not that
all
big
right.
Space.
All right. So
Anyway.
let's take a vote. All right, we got 5 people in here.
Yeah.
After the first expansion, how many people prefer the expansion system? Okay, I will say I do. So that makes me the minority. The 4 of you prefer the incremental weekly updates.
Yeah. I
For
think
me, I prefer the incremental updates, assuming that the expansions are only like one every 3 months, and we get no updates in the other 2 months.
new content every week, I think, is one of the few major differentiators
Mainstays in RuneScape.
Yeah.
It really
for
is.
us versus
It
other
does
games.
separate. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. That is.
And I
another thing.
also miss the whole your
Not-
comp cape disappearing.
I wanna
when
specify-
an update comes out.
non-MTX content. And yeah, before Menaphos, we only lost comp cape like once in 3 months or twice. Kinda
Yeah,
silly.
it really isn't as big an ordeal as many people named Defy Juice make it out to be. So, all right. So with that being said, I think we've exhausted what is to be discussed about Menaphos. Shane, I
Yeah, mate.
think you have something to go over.
What's that?
I don't know.
He's gonna make you say it.
Getting to. I don't know. I can't remember.
Can't remember.
I can't remember. It's been so long.
Time to get to know the boys.
Oh, time.
Boys.
Getting to know the boys.
What did you want to be when you grew up? So when you were younger, what did you want to be?
Wait, who asked this?
I
Where's the
can't
little
remember
intro?
the fella's name. I've disgraced him. I can't remember who you are who asked it, but you're a star. Good question. Very good question. What did you want to be when you grew up, Gunner?
Me in particular. Wow, being put
Yeah.
on the spot. I'm pretty sure at one point I wanted to be an astronaut, and then I wanted to be somebody who caught frogs for a living.
Well, that's out of this
I've
world.
failed on both accounts.
Well, there's nothing saying you can't catch frogs.
That's true, but I'm not going to make a very good living.
No, probably not.
All right.
What did you want to do with the frogs once you'd caught them?
I didn't think it that far through. I'm going to be honest.
You wanted to make them into
okay.
bellows to catch chompy birds.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I have played RuneScape since I was a
That's good.
toddler, so.
Alex,
What about you, Alex?
This is gonna sound boring, because this is what I'm actually doing anyway. I wanted to be a mathematician for like forever.
Really?
You're
since,
right,
like,
it did
fourth
sound
grade-
boring.
since I was a
That,
fourth
no,
grade.
that's one of the most interesting. Because how old were you at this time? You were like 6 or something. You're like,
Yeah, when I was like 3 or 4, I was like the only kid in my
Yeah.
preschool that could count to 100. And now look where we are now.
Yeah,
You can count to
You could-
200.
yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, 110.
that's good.
120, I would hope.
Nah, dude. 120 Slayer, that's too hard.
Well, that's a plus. You like that? That's a plus. Math. That's a little math symbol they use.
That's a negative right there.
Shane is a real negative to this podcast.
Well, let's divide the time equally. Andrew, what do you reckon?
Alright, so I'm pretty weird. I think I have ADHD because I've changed what I wanted to be pretty much every year I've been alive, I think. But
Yeah.
I'll give you one. Like when I was younger and my teachers told me I was really good at math, I probably wanted to be a mathematician. But I'll give you one that I actually strongly considered, not when I was that much younger, but when I was like a freshman, sophomore in college, I wanted to be an urban planner. I took one really good course on cities, and I was just fascinated, and I wanted to be an urban planner, but there was no good program for it, and I would have had to pursue it as a master's, so...
So maybe someday you'll be an urban planning professor.
No.
Have you ever played SimCity?
No.
Should you give that a shot?
It's basically
you might be able to live
identical.
out your
You'd
dreams.
like it.
Good fun. Ruvik, what did you want to be, mate?
I honestly have no clue, but like Alex, I did actually like math when I was younger until I got to like calculus. But then I hated calculus. Like I'm okay with it, but I hate it.
You didn't want to be
And
like
then-
a firefighter or something when you were younger? You just wanted to be
Nah,
good at math?
I had no clue. I did a bunch of stuff when I was young. I was
Okay.
in scouts and whatnot, and I went camping and did all this other stuff. But
So
like
do
I didn't have
do
like
you still want to be a Boy Scout when you're older? Is that what we're getting at?
exactly that.
That's
All
good.
right.
I want to be a kid again when I'm older.
Well, that's-
That's a real
okay.
Benjamin Button.
Don't we all, though? Don't we all? It'd be good to live back our youths, wouldn't it? But slowly we're just
I've started
decaying.
to question whether some of us have ever grew up in the first place.
We're just dying. Just slowly. Every minute we're closer to death, boys. Anyway,
All right,
let's
all
get
right,
to know
Mr.
the
Positive. What about you? What about you?
Yeah, he's a real negative,
What?
like I said.
Oh,
Yeah, what did you want to
when
be?
Yeah. Well, I was a bit. I really like. I have this. I remember. I wanted to sort of be an investment banker, and like I remember when I was about 11. I remember I sent an email to Jagex asking them because I knew what stocks were, but I didn't know how you got them or anything. And I knew I loved RuneScape, and I knew it was going to be a good. And I remember sending an email asking them to buy if I could buy stocks in Jagex, and they actually responded to me. And they said, unfortunately, it's not actually a publicly traded company. Like I had no idea at the time, but
Damn, that must have crushed your little investment banker heart.
but I got a little
What heart?
message at 12 years old from Jagex about buying in the company.
And
Think of how rich I could have been if they let me. I
So
could have
did
been
you?
like that big.
Did
Yeah, are you an
did
investment banker?
Close your briefcase and go home at that point, or are you an investment banker now?
No, I just live at home with Mama.
The dream, you mean?
The dream.
Yeah. So I'm glad to hear things worked out.
That's almost the same thing.
Yeah, and I wanted to be a professional gambler at one point as well. I don't know because I used to watch that on TV a lot, and they used to always just sort of, make each other laugh and look like they were having a good time. But that didn't pan out either. It turned out I wasn't very good at poker. I can't keep a straight face. I just show all my emotion. You probably
I find that incredibly
been
easy
told-
to believe.
I've been told I sound like I'm smiling a lot when I talk.
Are you?
Yeah.
Maybe. But yeah, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up now.
It's a
That
tough
assuming
question.
you're not
It's a
grown
tough
up.
question.
Next question.
Okay.
Alright.
Let's get to know the boys.
I think
Got
that's
a little
all.
Alright.
personal towards the end there. It was lovely. What an
Yeah.
experience.
We got through to our real fears and emotions. But
Mhm.
all right, thank you very much for that, Shane. I think that does conclude our first post Menaphos podcast. I'd
Episode
like to
10.
thank all of episode 10. I would like to thank you guys for joining as members of the panel. And for those of you listening, please make sure to like, subscribe, join the EE Discord, apply to the clan, anything else if you like what you hear. If you don't like what you hear, we also want to hear your opinions, so please put those in the podcast. If you have any contributions as to maybe what reward should come from 146 in the Slayer decks. So anyways, thank you guys very much, and we look forward to seeing you all again shortly. Happy escaping.
Bye.
You know what would be a good sign off? If you said run escape.
It's very
Like,
original.
'cause if you put it together, there's RuneScape.